When we think of all the different roller coasters, we have to decide which, we don't have to, but we can decide which is the ultimate themed roller coaster experience. There are many amazing options to pick from theming-wise. I meant only in the UK. All jokes aside, we do have some pretty amazing themed experiences over here. Other than the Nemesis Inferno crocodiles, that is. But which would most people, or at least me, consider to be some of the best? Along with the overall themed experience itself, I am going to be including everything inside that. For example, the story, the actual theming props itself, obviously. Which roller coaster would you immediately think of when you say the best themed roller coaster experience in the UK? And when I say this, what most people will automatically jump to is a ride where the theme is easy to understand. The story is plain out explained to you. For example, if you were to have a ride on, I don't know, Nemesis Inferno, there isn't really a very clear story. Although there is one, pretty much no one knows it, where instead, if you were to go on Wicker Man, it explains the story very well to you. Especially with that pre-show, that outstandingly good pre-show on Wicker Man, it's practically impossible to go on that ride not understanding the theme. The dark theme of Wicker Man gets across very easily, which is quite ironic seeing as Hyperia isn't really a dark themed ride, but it's not a family coaster. That's why I like to call Wicker Man the child traumatizer, because the countless children that must be traumatized off that ride. I mean, imagine being told as a child, oh, we're going to burn you alive. And of course, for a family coaster, Wicker Man is pretty fierce in terms of, as I said, family coasters, because we have Hyperia now. I think I'm going to continue on the topic of Wicker Man, as it is one of the best themed experiences we have in this country. I mean, there is no debate about that. It is just fact. I'm pretty sure it's not an IP, especially as it isn't directly themed to the films. And thank God it's not themed to that Nicolas Cage one. Bloody hell, that was atrocious. Walking by Wicker Man, already the adventure starts. The smell, oh my God, it is so convincing. The actual Wicker Man itself looks absolutely incredible. I don't care if it doesn't have legs. And the idea of using a ram and a man, the ram man, man ram, the things that they thought through before having Wicker Man, the fact it actually has its own language and its own alphabet. I alphabet you can't figure out what this message I made says. The absolutely amazing Imascore made the music, obviously, for Wicker Man, and it shouldn't not be ignored. This music is some of the best theme park music I've ever been blessed with. It captures the theming of the ride so well, and without theme park music, rides would feel so much different. And the symbols and runes and language that is around the place really adds to that feeling of you're in some messed up territory and you shouldn't be here. The sounds that the Wicker Man makes as the train goes through the Wicker Man, it suits it so well. Those sound effects are amazing. Not just that, but you go through the Wicker Man not once, not twice, three times. And when the fire's actually working, it is one of the coolest effects you can possibly have on a ride like this. The mist effects from this ride too, oh my God, last Scarefest, they were so strong, it was worse than the one in the Crows, and if you know, you know. You literally couldn't even see the entrance. I mean, I think they realised eventually that they should probably turn it down. I mean, the new test seat that's there from last year, it was soaked. It looked like it'd been raining. And of course, something that should not be ignored is the amazing train design. Look at it! The ram on the front is just the cherry on top, and the way that it looks like Wicker is absolutely amazing. I mean, how can you not get a better train design than this? Although I can think of maybe a few. Then when you reach the end of the queue line, you go inside to the baggage hold bit, you give them your bags, and as I've already mentioned, there's the absolutely ridiculously good pre-show. The disturbing soundtrack inside there, the runes on the walls inside the pre-show room is absolutely perfect. The station is also something that we shouldn't ignore. The way that the walls are lit up sort of behind the wooden design, giving that, fiery feel, the weird fire effects you can hear in the back, the dispatch sounds, the announcements, the visitors, we are opening the pins, take heed. It's just a shame that they didn't go with the original plan and have an offload station, because it makes the theme a bit more realistic, because you're kind of supposed to be dead. That is kind of what explains why the brake run and the ending of the ride is kind of hidden. Once you leave the station, you go down to check out your photos and get your bags, and into a gift shop, which is yet again very well themed. More of the symbols on the walls, the fiery, walls. I'm Dr. Seuss, apparently. Basically, the most important parts of Wicker Man were basically left untouched. They managed to fill in everything that was necessary and everything that really created the ride. Even on the brake run and on the lift hill, those little tunnels really make the difference. After the main drop, that pop of airtime inside that tunnel really makes the difference. All these points make Wicker Man a very worthy contender for the best UK-themed experience. On a roller coaster, let's not forget that bit. Now, next I'm going to stay at Alton Towers and address quite a controversial one, and that's the Smiler. I don't quite agree that the Smiler has the most immersive experience, but it certainly has its, pros and its cons. To leave it off on a better note, I'll start with the cons. Starting off with the cons, just so we can finish the Smiler on a nicer note, the queue line. Outside it's pretty bland, there's nothing too special about it, although the yellow and black colour scheme does look pretty cool. There's not really a lot around except for those, weird illusion word thingies where when you look at it at a particular angle it spells out a word, which looks pretty cool. The indoor queue line, they could have done something better with that rather than some projections and flashing lights which basically make you want to be blind. The station's also pretty bland, but it's not really something that I would imagine could be themed that well with what they have. Obviously it could be themed better, and they have put more theming in since, but yeah, it's just nothing that special. Other than the track, there isn't too much around the Smiler to look at, but that takes us onto the pros. And the main pro with the theming experience, well, we'll obviously have to give that to the Marmalizer. The Marmalizer is the main theming piece of the Smiler, the spider-looking correctional device. In the story, the Marmalizer is supposedly what turns you into a smiling advocate. It does this by using all of the effects on its legs called the Flasher, the Tickler, the Giggler, the Inoculator, and the Hypnotizer. And of course we can't forget the one part that's always forgotten, the Disorientator, which isn't part of the Marmalizer itself, but it's part of the correctional process. It has quite cool details and facts, but most people won't even know about it. But at least it's something for enthusiasts and Smiler fans to get behind. For example, did you know that the entrance for the Smiler is actually a mind scanner? This is how the Marmalizer plays memories out of people's heads when it says scanning memories. The soundtrack is very controversial, but I'm going to put that as a very good pro, because that soundtrack is supposed to do what it does amazingly. It makes you feel uncomfortable, it's irritable, it just doesn't sound quite right, everything is slightly off about it. It sounds like some messed up science experiment, because, well, it is. The way that they use different soundtracks in different areas on the ride is genius as well. The way they use unsettling soundtracks rather than the big loud soundtracks inside, the way that they use quiet soundtracks in the station, and the way they use the very joyful soundtracks in the exit after you've been corrected. The audio on the second lift hill, which has temporarily been turned off for some reason at the moment. I don't know, apparently we're getting it back when the 2025 season arrives. Something else I also want to mention is the screens in the queue line other than the Marmalizer. The messages that play on the screens are very straightforward, they have quite disturbing images on them sometimes, and it's basically just everything that you would see in a horror film about science. Something else that I think is quite cool about the Smiler is its trains. They're nothing too special, but the black and white colour scheme really makes them stand out on the black track. They're like this so you basically can't miss them around the track, and they're basically the only thing that stands out when the ride is going around. The Smiler's exit should also be given credit, as it is pretty boring at first, but the patterns on the wall are pretty cool, the messages on the walls are pretty cool, and then you get into the dark bit with the projections. Now, I can see why people are so scared of this, because it's like anything could just pop around the corner and it's bloody dark. The shop's also quite well done, decorated wise, and the merchandise for the Smiler is very popular for a reason. And despite the fact that this ride doesn't have the most theming in the world, it has a whole fan base behind it. I'd probably say it has the largest theme park fan base behind it due to the story and lore it has. Shame that the tragic incidents in 2015 prevented the park from doing any more expanding with the story until as of recent. I don't know, I mean, they had more cameos of Dr. Kelman in the fireworks, and the Smiler takeover, I have no clue what was up with that, honestly. What the Smiler does well, it does well. The problem is that what it doesn't have is what would make the ride so much more immersive. The story of this ride really does intrigue people though, and that's what the Smiler does well, and that's what Alton Towers hit the spot with. I guarantee you are never going to turn up to Alton Towers Scarefest without seeing one person dressed as a Ministry of Joy person, or whatever you call them. But as I've more or less already said, when I think of the Smiler's theming, I just think that the potential was so massive and that it's a shame that they didn't go further with it. Now we move on to the other side of the park yet again, over in Forbidden Valley. New for this year, we have Nemesis Reborn. When it comes to themed experiences, Nemesis immediately jumps all the way to the top with the best themed experiences in the UK. Already, the fact that Nemesis has some of the best landscaping that I've ever seen already puts this ride so high up. Although the trains may not be too interesting, they look really nice, and along the track with those red vein things, I don't know what they are, but they look really good. The station is I'm pretty sure it is the best station on a roller coaster in the United Kingdom. The overall theming of the entire area is great, and you could argue that isn't part of Nemesis's theming, it's to do with the story, and it's there because of Nemesis. I'm gonna count it. The helicopters they have are amazing, especially that crashed one that plays the audio inside, and let's not forget about the eye. Yeah, let's just skip the eye actually. When it comes to theming at Nemesis, the main theming piece is obviously the eye. It is absolutely everything I would have wanted for the new Nemesis to look like. The way that it interacts with the train and the way how it just looks around, I guess. The weird claw teeth thingies around the eye, I doubt they're teeth, but I don't know what they are. When you're in the queue line, there are a bunch of theming props everywhere, whether it be that weird gun thing, all those barrels, that weird containing thing with the computer, and obviously you have all the Seek the Truth propaganda, which has been sprayed over the propaganda. Well, I'm not sure if it's propaganda. And of course, we have an Imascore soundtrack. Imascore, don't miss. I mean, when the maintenance shed is themed, that's when you know that it's a good ride. When I mean a good ride, I mean good themed ride, because Hyperia's theming isn't brilliant, but I suppose the maintenance shed is kind of themed. And not only this, but it's not just Nemesis where they stop with all the Phalanx theming, especially as they're still continuing the story with Project Ocean, which is very obviously going to be themed to the Phalanx yet again. And of course, how could I forget Nemesis Subterra? When actors were around in Forbidden Valley this year, it only added to the experience more. The news reporters, the Phalanx guards, Seek the Truth. It's everything you would have wanted from Alton Towers when they brought back this iconic roller coaster. And I don't just have my opinions to back this up, but it even won a golden ticket for Best Reimagined Ride. And I want to talk about Bunker 94. How can you theme a gift shop better than that? The announcements it has, like the powers going out, Nemesis breaching containment, I mean, it was so unnecessary, but it was just so perfect. Nemesis could be considered the UK's best themed roller coaster, and I wouldn't blame anyone for thinking this. And now, let's move on to the UK's weirdest roller coaster, potentially. Mandrill Mayhem inside World of Jumanji. This roller coaster is very well themed. I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's the best in the UK, but I would say that they've done a great job. I want to start off by addressing the trains, and that I'm personally not actually a big fan. I think they look a little bit like they tried too hard, a little bit silly. I'd rather they went with something that looked, not alive. Other than that, the Jaguar looks very cool. The mist effect coming out of its mouth, the jewel, is it a jewel? I think it's a jewel, isn't it? The way the roller coaster goes around the Jaguar is genius, and it's what I thought it was going to be immediately when I saw the plan. The way that the area is made to look like the Jumanji board is also very cool. Although I would prefer it if it was themed on the older Jumanji films rather than the newer ones, I still think that it's a pretty cool IP to go off. I like the way that there's a particular angle that it tells you to stand at, where the board has the World of Jumanji logo looking like the actual logo and not like think of it like the Smiler. I also think it's pretty cool that they have the board game pieces around the area, but instead they're massive and you can climb them because kids always are. There's a random little playground in the middle, which isn't that fun looking, to be honest. I think there's like a few sticks on the floor. There's a cool photo opportunity with the hippo where it's like crashing into the fence, like when Jack Black gets eaten. And I have to mention the entrance to the whole area itself, the World of Jumanji entrance. It looks perfect. It's exactly what you would want for a land like that. It feels like you're stepping into the game, which is like the universe. So it's like stepping into the universe. It's like you've entered it through this like engine. I need to shut up. And the station looks absolutely perfect. The lighting, the way that it's like dangling through those like leads, wires, whatever you call them. And oh my god, the sequencing. No, not that way. It's perfect. It's so dim in there, with the lights being also pretty dim. It makes you feel like you're actually like somewhere abandoned. It's pretty cool. And there's other details, like inside the op cabin, you can see all of these like days being counted. There's I don't know how long the operation person's been in there, or the operator. What is going on with me? Makes me wonder how long they've been in there. And the shop section is also pretty cool. It's looking like the weird marketplace that they go to in the actual film, and it just makes sense. Now, I'm sorry, but before I move on, I wanted to quickly just say that Vampire isn't going to be here, because as the theming inside that station and queue line is great, I think that the on-ride experience itself is lacking the theming. Now, moving over to Thorpe Park to address one of their best themed roller coasters, and possibly best themed in the UK. Maybe, I'm not sure. Is it worthy enough? I think it is. The Swarm. The whole of Swarm Island is really well done, and all the crashed vehicles like the plane, the helicopter, the fire engine, it's all just done perfectly. It has a great area soundtrack, and a song which I definitely can't play. The overall destruction of the entire area just looks amazing. The toilets, the station, the telephone box, everything little also makes this ride so good, like the little radio announcements that you can hear inside the fire engine. And the story behind this ride is actually so underrated, it needs more attention. Obviously, as most people can tell, it's the end of the world, and it's been for over 10 years. There's also a game show going on next to it, but we can ignore that for now. But the whole story leading up to it, and the people rising up trying to save themselves, the swarm invasion, the story of that during Fright Nights before, I'm actually so sad that that's gone, but survival games is kind of more worth it. The alien actors were just mwah, chef's kiss. And the whole story about Les Coogan and them warning us and them doing the station dispatch, it's just, they've taken things to this level which most people won't know, but it's really cool for those who do know. And of course, I have to address the church station. It's so good, and it's even part of the story how you're supposed to go to the church for shelter. Yeah, it doesn't go very well. And of course, the iconic plane wing after the drop, can't forget that. And of course, the iconic sound effect that we've heard so many times. Am I seriously about to recreate the sound? And although the trains aren't an original design, they still do fit the ride quite well, even if the aliens supposedly were supposed to look kind of like this. The way that riders interact with the area is just perfection. The way that you go through the billboard, which was actually added a year later if you didn't know, the plane, as I mentioned, and of course the station, that hang time is so good, and the way that you crash basically through the walls is mental. Although the ride is quite short, it certainly does have one hell of an immersive experience. It's easy to see why this ride is so popular with guests, and not just because it's right at the front of the park. The Swarm was one of the coasters that really helped me get over my fear of roller coasters, so it will always have a special place in my heart, and I'm trying not to be too biased about anything in this video, but it's safe to say that the Swarm is 100% one of the best experiences when it comes to themed attractions in the United Kingdom. There are so many other rides that I wish to mention, but unfortunately this video has turned out longer than I wanted it to be, so rides like Saw the Ride and etc. I won't be including, unfortunately, now, as I have to end this because I'm not even going to be able to post it at this point. Let me know which other UK roller coasters also deserve to be on this video. I've pretty much basically just gone with the most popular ones in this video, so people can decide which one is the best themed experience. And if none of these are your favorite, if none of these are your favorite UK themed experience, then let me know which one you think should be on this video the most. Thank you very much for watching this video. Now like and subscribe if you haven't already, otherwise Emily Oldham will be hiding in your wardrobe tonight. Don't risk it.